finally that time of the year where we talk about the best books of 2023. Hello fellow book nerds, this is Gabby, and today we're talking about a very exciting topic indeed, because we're talking about best books of 2023. I had a really good reading year. I hopefully by the time and this year is done, I would have read my goal of 123 books, but so far I've read 121, and it is really the last stretch of the year. So I thought, let's talk about best books, because I don't think this list is going anywhere. It's already a little bit too long. So we have 10 best books, but then I also have like 5 honorable mentions. So we're just gonna run through honorable mentions, get into and talk about the best books properly. I would love to hear from you in the comments while we do this. What was your favorite book of the year? I really want to know, and maybe I'll pick it up in 2024. But this video will be long as is, so let's just get straight into it. Okay, so let's start with honorable mentions, and I have 5, so let's go through them quickly. So first book I just wanted to shout out was Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Sutanto. So this book is just such a breath of fresh air and joy, and I loved every minute of it. We follow an elderly tea shop owner called Vera Wong, who finds a dead body in her tea shop and decides to insert herself into the police investigation. It's a story about family, it's a story about found family, it's a story filled with laughter. It was such good comedy gold, and I had a great time with this book, and I just enjoyed every moment of it. So I would really highly recommend you read it, pick it up, and if you wanna laugh, that's the book for you. Then I felt like this book needed a shout out just because of what it unleashed. So the book is A Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Do I think this is the best book I've read this year? No, therefore it's not on the list. But I thought an honorable mention was deserved, because this is a high adult romantasy or romance fantasy where we follow a girl who has to become a dragon rider, and she joins this school for dragon riders, super competitive, and she thought she wanted to be a scribe, so it's not her vibe. This just re-sparked my love of romantasy and made me want to pick up more romantasy. So, you know, it started something. I read this book super quickly, I read the sequel quickly, I want to reread them. There's just something really fun about it. It's not so serious. It's like reading Sarah J. Maas. It's like book candy, and sometimes you just want book candy. So that's why I made the list as an honorable mention. I just wanted to give a quick shout out, because I think I'm going to be picking up more romantasy in 2024 due to this book's influence. The next 2 books are kind of the opposites of each other. One is an ending to a series, one is a beginning, and I wanted to shout them out quickly for different reasons. So first is He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan. So this is the culmination of the duology, first book being She Who Became the Sun. And She Who Became the Sun was on my favorites list of the year that I read it, and this book had really big shoes to follow into, and I would say it delivered. So book 1 is it's a gender bent retelling of the rise to power of first emperor of the Ming dynasty. This book just was filled with so much angst and very complicated characters who had really intrinsically developed relationships with each other, and I just felt that was all done so deftly, and I loved this book for what it did. Was it a fun time reading it? Not always, because it talks about really difficult topics and really makes you work for it. A lot of the characters are very unlikable, but when the things you think about and the things you learn, I think it's just unforgettable. So really think this duology delivered, and I had a great time reading it. Okay, next shout out is Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. This book is a retelling of Antony and Cleopatra set in like fictional sci-fi Hong Kong. I didn't fall absolutely in love with this. I think it had some strength, it had some weaknesses, but I can totally see how this is an amazing setup for this series to go on. I think it had really toxic but enthralling relationship at its core. And I found it all really exhilarating. And I will definitely pick up book 2, and I think it has the potential to become even greater than book 1, because it felt like a lot of setup, but like I like what it was setting up, so I'm not mad about it. Okay, and then the last honorable mention is The Actual Star by Monica Byrne. So this book is so wild. It's a sci-fi. We follow 3 timelines. One is like during the Aztec gods' time, and we follow 2 twins who are vying for power in their empire. Then we follow like a 2012 timeline where a girl goes on a holiday to find her roots. And then third timeline is far into the future, where societies evolved beyond like recognition. I don't think I've had such a wild time reading a sci-fi novel as I did with this book. It's absolutely wild, off the cuff, and just so different than anything I've ever read that I would really recommend it. I think it's great for fans of Atlas Cloud, which I haven't read, but I've seen the movie and I know generally what it's about, although I did not understand the movie at all. This book is just absolutely wild, goes so off the rails, and I loved reading it and seeing the drama. And there's some incest here, so you know, that was like an experience, but I will just say like totally worth at least checking it out, because you will be thinking about it. All right, let's go on to the actual top 10 books of the year. I can't believe we're here. It feels really wild, but let's chat about it. And book number 10 is something that doesn't often make it onto my top books, but it's a non-fiction, and the book is Finding Me by Viola Davis. So this is a memoir by Viola Davis, the actress, talking about her growing up, becoming an actress, and kind of her life, and she's gone through a lot of hardships. I thought the book was super well written. It was so well narrated by the author, and honestly, it was like really harrowing because she's gone through a lot of hardships. But that just means anytime I see her in a movie now, I am so happy. Like, I always really liked her and I thought she was an amazing actress, but just seeing how far she's come and how hard she's had to work for it just makes me like love her even more and wish nothing but the absolute best for her. I really enjoyed learning about her experience, and it was just such a powerful read. I would totally recommend. It reminded me of Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, which is probably my second other favorite. They're both favorites. Memoirs, not something I read a lot, not something that makes it on my top 10, but I thought it really deserved a shout out because if you can handle the subject matter, I think it's really worth picking up. Okay, book number 9 is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. So I loved Ninth House. I'm a huge Ninth House fan. I have done some research yesterday because I was like, this was going to be like a 12-book series. What's happening to that? Then it was going to be 5 books. Now apparently it's just a trilogy, and I don't even know if the author is writing book 3. It is on Goodreads, but has no title, no cover, no release date. So we'll see when that comes out. But that was my worry with Hellbent, that the wait between Hellbent and Ninth House was quite long. I think it was like 2 years, and it just felt, you know, will it live up? It felt like a question mark, but I think it did. I had a really great time with it. I will say I read this obviously like when it came out, which was like January, so it's been a year nearly. But I just remember feeling really exhilarated and super excited for what's next. I thought the characters just got more interesting, and I didn't tell you what the book is about, so let me do that now. In Ninth House, we follow Alix, who goes to Yale, and she can see ghosts. So yeah, it's a girl who can see ghosts and goes to Yale, but there's like more to it. So basically there's these secret societies at Yale, and it's usually rich kids doing magic to support themselves and excel in the world. And Ninth House is the house that oversees and makes sure that no one steps out of line and everyone adheres to the rules they have. And Alix becomes part of this society. There's this guy called Darlington who is currently like the head of this house, and she learns from him, but then he disappears and she tries to find him. Absolutely love the sequel. I'm so happy that it lived up to my expectations because they were high, they were mighty, and I cannot wait for book 3. Book number 8 is one that is, again, not a very common occurrence on my top books list, but it's a thriller. So it's The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. So in this book, we follow an author who feels like her career is not where she wants it to be. She used to have this really good friend, but they're no longer on speaking terms. And one day she gets invited to this writing retreat with her absolute idol, like an author that she's always really admired, really wants to emulate, and thinks is an amazing author. So being given this opportunity to go on this retreat feels like a once in a lifetime opportunity. When she gets to the retreat, turns out her friend or her nemesis is there, and maybe this is all a little bit more sinister than she expected. Things I liked about this book was the building suspense. I feel like it really got you sucked in, and even though it's not one of those thrillers where someone dies within, the first 5 pages and it's like high paced, it's more of a slow exploration of these characters, these themes, these archetypes, and it just felt like it kept building and building and building. But the finale was really over the top, really dramatic. That's something I love in thrillers. Reminded me of In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which is one of my all-time favorite thrillers. And I just had a great time with it. I thought the characters and the character studies were just so compelling. And I was just shocked how much I enjoyed this book. Thrillers are something I love, but finding one that truly I like go so hard for is unique, because usually I'm like, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I had like a good time. We're not gonna be thinking about it too much, but like, it tickled my fancy, Whereas this one, I really, really loved when I read. It was such a fun ride, and I would 100% recommend if you like In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, or you like similar type of thrillers that I do. Book number 7 is The Final Strife by Saara El-Arifi. So this book is one I read when I wasn't like reviewing books as much, so I'm quite bummed because there's no video for me to go back to and listen to my reasons for why I liked it. That's something I did for the whole list. Like, I just went through my old videos and listened to what made me passionate at the moment and what I enjoyed, and kind of helped me with, sometimes you read books months before and you're like, I think I liked it, but why? It just makes it much easier. But for this book, I don't have like a video I read freshly after, so I've never like properly articulated my love for this book, but this book is absolutely amazing. So Final Strife is about this kingdom where there's a very clear distinction between like the upper classes and lower classes, and it all depends on what color your blood is. So there's like blue blood and red blood. But where we follow this is where the country finds itself in this thing called the Aktabar. So Aktabar happens every 10 years, and they essentially compete in different set of challenges to find the next apprentice to like the Warden of Strength, the Warden of Law, the Warden of Knowledge. I might be pulling these out of my ass, but different wardens. And we follow 2 girls. So one of them is the daughter of the Warden of Strength, and one of them is part of the lower caste of people. And the girl from the lower caste has trained her whole life to take part in this Aktabar and become the Warden of Strength, but through the series of circumstances she can't join, so she trains this daughter of the Warden of Strength to participate, and romance ensues. There's a lot going on. I really cannot wait to read the sequel, which has already come out, but book 3 is coming out next year, so I just want to like dose myself, because this book was so good. First of all, I really loved the characters. I think both of them were so well fleshed out, and you really understand what they mean in this world, what they are in this world, and I think them interacting and changing each other's perspectives was just so good. This world has quite an interesting caste system, and how the 2 different blood types colorate to each other, and it's quite a brutal world, and I really enjoyed learning about that, and I thought it was really painful but really poignant how we learned, about the strife and the people's suffering, and the Aktabar was really engaging and really fun, but I really loved the relationship. It's just such a well executed sapphic love story. I absolutely adored how they got to know each other and then related to each other and grew together, and how them secrets and how them being a part of different societies, how that all culminated. And yeah, I just really had a great time with this book. I cannot wait for the sequel. I cannot wait for book 3. You should totally pick it out. The author also I met at a convention, and she was absolutely the loveliest. I just had such a great time chatting to her. Pick it up because it's a really good book, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. And the author is also coming out with a new book in January called Feybound, which I am so excited for. So yeah, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Really great book. Alright, book number 6 is kind of another thriller, but really a horror. It's called The Only One Left by Riley Sager. And if you told like 2 years ago me that I would put a Riley Sager on my favorite lists, I'm shocked because I read a book from him that I really didn't like, and then I never saw the hype, and then every year his books just get better and better. So I loved The Only One Left. It is kind of like thriller horror type of thing, where we follow a girl who becomes a caretaker in this house in the town. It's kind of understood that the woman living in this house killed her family many years ago and got away with it, and because of that she became quite like a social pariah, so no one ever goes to the house and engages with this family. The woman who is accused of doing that, she is quite old now, and she suffered a series of, I think, strokes, so is quite disabled, and the main character becomes a caretaker because she needs the money. I just thought this was such a twisty turning book. I had no clue what I was signing up for. I thought I knew where it was going, and then just like woof, like boo 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 boo, like you think you know where it's going, it's kind of going there, but then it's going many other directions too. I had a great time, felt like a roller coaster reading this book, and it was just so exhilarating and fun, and then also tragic. And I think the way the characters were explored was really interesting and really engaging. It wasn't what I expected, and I just really want to reread the book because I feel like there's a lot of things I already forgot. There's a lot of things I didn't see on my first read through, which I feel like I totally would in the following reads. And yeah, it was just really good, really fun, and I would totally reread this and recommend this and ask you to pick it up because it was really fun. Spot number 5 is Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kuang. So this is by the author of Poppy War, which is quite a popular series, and this book is truly something special. So we follow June Hayward, who is an author, but she feels like her career is not going where she wants. She doesn't feel like she's got the accolades she deserves, and nor the sales that she thinks her books should have. And this is quite the opposite to her college friend called Athena, who is a very well-liked, famous author who got all the success that June feels she deserves. So they have this like little rivalry going on. They're like frenemies, they're friends, but kind of June always wishes secretly Athena's downfall. So when Athena dies, when at lunch with June kind of seizes the opportunity and steals Athena's unfinished manuscript for her newest book. And then she remakes it a little bit, but mostly just steals it and publishes it under her own name. With that goes suitably ethnically ambiguous name because Athena was Asian, and she was writing about I think Chinese experience in World War I or II. So the book is quite racially charged and talks about really personal struggles to Athena. So June steals it, assumes kind of ethnically ambiguous role, and profits of Athena's death. So this book had really addicting writing, and it really kept you at the edge of your seat. There were so many so many turns where you like, where is this going? How much further can a person dig their own grave? And because of that, it was really hard to put down because you just really need to see where this train wreck will take you. I think the perspective of the book was incredibly interesting. This person who is deluding themselves and lying to themselves so much and is clearly not a great person. You're like, you will get what's coming to you, but at the same time, oh my god, like stop making such bad decisions so your life can be slightly less miserable. It was a very interesting perspective that made you question yourself and your judgment. You have to keep asking yourself and digging deeper to see whether what you're reading is really factual and or is it just a matter of perspective. I really enjoyed really complex characters, both of June and Athena, like how three-dimensional they were and how much depth there was to both of them. And I think it was a really, really interesting view in under the hood of publishing and examining, how it all works. It was very interesting from an outside perspective to get that glimpse. Obviously, it's all dramatized, but I still think it was a super interesting look. I totally thought this book was amazing, maybe even needed a bit more acolytes because I feel like we moved on from it too quickly. But yeah, really, really, really great book. Number 5, so that's pretty high. Okay, so book number 4 is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Do I think it's technically a better book than Yellowface? I'm now questioning that, but I just had so much damn fun with this book. So this book is a horror novel by the author of such hits as My Best Friend's Exorcism, Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, Horror Store. The author just is a gift that keeps on giving. But in this book, we follow two siblings whose parents passed away in a car accident, and they're now tasked with selling off their childhood home. Safe to say, there's some haunted aspects to the house. I thought it was just such campy fun. I think Grady Hendrix does campy horror like no other. His premises themselves are super wild and just so out of the left field. But this book, I thought it was addicting as hell, and it also discussed way more than maybe you would think at the surface. It really examined 5 stages of grief and generational trauma, and I think it did both of those topics justice. I really loved reading this book. It was one of these things where I couldn't put it down, but I was also scared to pick up. I was actually freaked out by a haunted puppet in a book. Like, that is skill. Okay, we're getting into the top 3, so things are getting serious. Let's talk about number 3, which is Starling House by Alix E. Harrow. So Alix E. Harrow is the author of $10,000 of January and Once and Future Witches. So I was really excited to pick up her newest book. So in this one, we follow a woman living in this small town, and she feels like she's never really had that much of a chance at life because when she was really young, her mother died in a car accident, and she's been responsible for her younger brother. So she lives on the edge of poverty and is doing her best to take care of her brother. One thing that's always kind of kept her going was this story of the Starling house, which is a house that is in this town, and its author lived like 100 years ago, but she is an author of the house's author. The house's owner lived like 100 years ago, and she's the author of a very popular like dark children's story. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like really dark Alice in Wonderland, which I think is already pretty dark. So since then the house been obviously taking over by new people, and the newest heir of the Starling house is a young man living there by himself, and he hires the main character to be a housekeeper or like a cleaner. And she jumps at the opportunity because she always felt like Starling House has been calling to her, and also she needs the money, and it's really easy job with easy money. I really love the writing of this book. I enjoy flowery writing. I think this maybe could have been even more purpley because we know the author can do it because I've read $10,000 of January. But yeah, I really love the writing, and I really love the complex characters that were examined here. I think the book was really focused. It really knew what I wanted to say, and I really appreciate that. I love the main couple here. I think the relationship here, it just is so rich and it felt so real. And it was really whimsical, but at the same time, it was really dark. And that's a combination I love. I'm a sucker for whenever I see in a book. Like something whimsical that is also got an edge to it, I think is such a great combo. And I really just enjoyed reading this book so much. I think maybe I still prefer $10,000 of January, but it's also because I read it so many years ago. It's got this place in my mind that I need to challenge one day and reread it. But yeah, this was a great book, great couple, great story that I had to tell, and it was really quite short, which I enjoyed because again, it was so streamlined and focused, and I really, really like that. Okay, number two is a really exciting one because I was not expecting this. But it's Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. So Ashley Winstead is the author of In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which I already mentioned I really, really love. But this is her newest book, and in this one, we follow this ultra religious small town and a woman who's lived there her whole life. She's the daughter of the preacher, and her childhood best friend is the town's outcast. And she's now an adult living in this town, working as a librarian, and the town is shooketh one day when the police find a skull in the marshes. They suspect it's murder, and the main character gets really distressed because she thinks this investigation will uncover some really sad truths from her past. I think this book is just such a fascinating unpacking of religious trauma. It's definitely on the dark side. It's definitely a little bit toxic and a little bit wild. The main couple is like Edward and Bella on steroids, I guess. But Twilight is weirdly a really big part of the themes of this book. But I just really loved everything that it explored, and I really found some of the things that he had to say super profound, especially on the religious trauma bit. I just think it talks about abuse, emotional and physical, and how that all makes you into the person you are and how that impacts you. And I think that was super poignant. It also talked a lot about religious cults and power that religious leaders hold, or just charismatic leaders hold over people. And I think that was such a timely conversation. I really enjoyed that. I really loved the way it talked about teenage girls and how we as a society treat teenage girls and everything that they touch and love. Considering how short this book is, it just packed such a punch. Every line felt like misery. I felt a little bit hopeless at times because, you know, things will get worse and worse and worse. Some people said that they DNF, for example, because it was a little slow. I guess I can understand that, although I like, if anything, I would have DNF'd it because I was like, this is too much. I can't. Every page, every chapter is misery. I just think it had, again, just so much to say, and I really love that. And the ending, I think, was perfect for the story, even if it wasn't maybe what I wanted, but I think it was just so well executed. I think everyone should read this, and I really think everyone should read this critically. Obviously, if you didn't enjoy it, I'm not saying anything about you. I totally get that we all have completely different tastes, but to me, this book spoke so deeply. I made a friend read this and we just discussed it endlessly, and I felt so heard and echoed by my friend who felt really similar to me. I love this book. I will keep talking about this book, and I will hopefully reread this book because I have made a lot of tabs on my ebook, but I've gotten the physical since, so I need to tab it. And also I love the cover, it's just so great. Ashley Winstead does not miss. I just really love her works, and I think I will pick up whatever she writes. And finally, my favorite book of the year, maybe you already guessed it because I did kind of refer to it as such in the video where I read it, but it's Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. So this book is just, I love it. I love it. It's just joy personified. I mean, it's miserable, so it's not joy personified, but for me. So this is a kind of a gothic horror historical fantasy. So we follow Nena and Nestor, who are young children. Nena is a daughter of, I think it's called a ranchero, so like quite a high ranking person. This is set in Mexico in like 18 something. I want to say 1840s Mexico. We follow Nena. She's like the rich daughter of a rich man, and then Nestor is a son of a person who works for the man. They were always childhood friends and have fallen in love as children. A lot of ranchos are plagued by raids from the Yankees. Nestor and Nena try to take things into their own hands when they're like 13. They go at night to and dig some graves to find gold, and they get attacked by a mysterious figure, and Nena is on the verge of death. Nestor gets blamed for it, so he runs away thinking that Nena has died, whereas Nana thinks that Nestor abandoned her. And then we find ourselves a couple years in the future, and Nana and Nestor are brought back together, and we have some vampires and we have some gothic deliciousness. Weirdly, this book felt a lot to me like a Jane Austen novel, but make it gothic and make it horror. I don't know what it is. I just think because the topic, or like the premise, kind of reminds me of Persuasion by Jane Austen, where these, you know, two people are brought back together after years and then a love affair in their youth. But I just absolutely love this. The way these two people love each other, I found so amazing and moving, and I think the book is just so well written. There's so many beautiful lines in it, and I would really just call this an epic love story. There are vampires, it is a horror, but I think that was the only element that maybe could have used some more time in the oven, because it could have been enhanced a little bit. I really love the way it was, and I'm not complaining. Like, I'll take this any time of the day. It's just, if you're coming into it thinking it's more like the Hacienda, which is also by the author, it's slightly less horror, more romance. I'm not complaining because I love romance. And just that the yearning in this book and the relationship, I thought it was so well executed. The book was just so well and beautifully written, and the author just has really amazing skills when it comes to setting up an atmosphere and setting up the setting. I felt like I was in 1840s Mexico in terms of like how hot it was and descriptions of that. And I think it does a really good job also explaining the political situation at the time, which maybe not everyone is aware of. I wasn't that aware of it. And yeah, I really love how the author looks at different periods in Mexican history. Really reminds me of Silvia Moreno Garcia in that aspect. And yeah, I totally love this book, and I'm so head over heels for it. And I think everyone should pick it up because it's just so good. Okay, so those are the top 10 books of the year, with some honorable mentions as well. As you can see, the only new author I think that I've never read anything from before, well, Viola Davis, Julia Bartz, and Saara El-Arifi. So I've got some new favorite authors, but a lot of authors I've discovered and loved in the past have really come through with some amazing new books. I would recommend all of these to you. I really would say go check them out, pick them up, because they're worth your time. Hopefully something I said made you think so as well. But let me know your favorite book of the year, your top 5, your top 10, whatever you want to share. Please share it down below. I really want to know. I have done a video where I talk about the worst books of the year as well, so go check that out. I also have a video where I talk about my most anticipated releases for 2024, and I am working on a video with some stats where we're going to talk about how the year went. I have some reflections. I feel like a couple of suggestions, you know, for myself, because it was an interesting year for sure. Subscribe to stay up to date with all of those videos. If you enjoyed this video, if you could give a comment, like, and subscribe, I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!